All right, I'd like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order, and we're going to resume our budget hearings for today. And first up, we'll have the Department of Children's Services. So before the presentation begins, without objection, we are out of session. I will ask the department and Commissioner Quinn to come up. And again, we will handle your microphones, turning them on and off. You'll see the red light come on when you do. You're ready to proceed in giving your answers or your presentation. And members, again, make sure you are logged back in if you did log out during the break. And without further ado, Commissioner Quinn, you are recognized. Thank you and your team for being here.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I am Margie Quinn, Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Children's Services. At the table today are Chief of Staff Andy Varinsky, Executive Director of Legislative Jim Lehman, Executive Director of Network Development Frank Mix, and Assistant Commissioner Muhammad El Casey. I think that gets us, and a slew of other very important, exciting people behind me who may or may not take the podium. Good afternoon, Chairman Hicks and distinguished members of the House Finance, Ways and Means Committee. We are pleased to be with you today and talk about the gains we have made over the past 3 years, in large part due to your significant investments in the department. A seismic improvement has occurred in how often children are moved while in custody. I am pleased to report to you that the data shows a 60 to 70% better rate of placement for children and youth than when DCS and the state came out of Brian A. in 2019. At that time, the department placement was 8.1 moves per 1,000 days in custody. When I took the position, the number was 7.87, and now we are at 4.47, just below the national average. We have met our initial goals and plan for continued improvement. The question we consider every day is what is in the best interest of a child? Since 2022, everything at DCS has been driven by answering that question. Short-term clinical assessment stays have allowed us to make more intentional and informed placements, thus reducing the number of moves with every child. We are also relying more heavily on community-based interventions in the home because we know keeping families together matters, and that is what is best for kids. We know there is additional progress to be made. More children are being placed with family and relative care. While there are fewer foster homes, our initiatives over the past 3 years have resulted in fewer placement moves and more stability for a child in state custody. Our preferred choice is to keep a child with biological family members. The Relative Caregiver Program, fully funded by this legislature, is at max liability at $32 million, but is serving 3,430 children and 2,019 families, keeping families together and children out of state custody, a big win for Tennessee families. Through our strategic actions and targeted investments, we successfully revitalized an agency facing significant challenges. Just 3 years ago, we faced historic staffing shortfalls and an overburdened workforce. With your investment, we raised starting salaries from $43,000 to $50,400 and have seen the vacancy rate drop and the turnover rate plummet. The staffing of our agency has a tremendous impact on our ability to fully serve our constituency. Our success as an agency is directly tied to our ability to keep our positions filled and our staff working well in position. While case file averages have dropped significantly, there is again more progress to be made here, especially in child safety and in hardest hit Davidson County, where they are above the case cap of 20. Our first goal would be to see all case managers carrying a caseload of 15. The national best practices standard is 12. By implementing strategic initiatives and wise investments, we transformed a once challenged agency into a thriving organization. Our fully funded DCS real estate plan is in the final design phase, and 6 of the new spaces will be shovel-ready by the end of this calendar year. The first of the new spaces at Jonesboro will break ground in the first quarter of 2026. It will be a 16-bed, new trauma-informed home-like setting to receive youth who are entering custody for a short-term stay. It will have a medical, dental, and educational-ready spaces for those kids while they are residing there. These new spaces will take the place of transitional homes and offices and are located across the state and will offer more services. Finally, the Safe Baby Courts have been an incredibly successful program and enabled us to work hand in glove with the juvenile courts and with families to keep kids and children out of state's custody. Currently, there are 22 sites that are either fully implemented or in active implementation. 2 sites are currently starting implementation, and 8 sites will complete implementation by June of 2026. That's 6 new sites from recent funding appropriations and 2 replacement sites. SBC families achieve permanency faster than traditional dependency and neglect cases and have a lower rate of repeat maltreatment, with only 5 cases representing 9 children since 2020 reentering foster care within 6 months of case closure. With decisive actions and your resourceful investments, a successful turnaround is occurring at our agency. We overcame many of the agency's challenges, implementing proactive measures and impactful investments that are ushering in greater stability and sustainable growth. With your help, we will continue to make strides in improving the department, understanding there is still much progress we need to see at DCS. Thank you, and we are happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you for your presentation. We do have some folks on the list, and we will first begin with Representative Hicks. You're recognized. Representative Tim Hicks. Yeah, no.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks. Appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here and your staff. Some questions related to the increase in case managers. What is the current starting salary? And you may have said this. What is the current starting salary of case managers employed by the state?
The starting salary right now is $50,400, and at the 1 year mark, they flex to $54,000. So
Okay.
at 2 year, they flex to $54,000.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is the starting salary the same for case managers across the state, or does it vary based on location?
It's the same in all 95 counties.
Thank you for that answer. Mr. Chairman, I got a few questions. Yep. How do state employed case managers' salaries compare to those of private case managers?
So you're talking about the privatized case management,
Mm-hmm.
Mohammed?
They're very competitive, the salary that we pay versus what Use Villages pay or other providers.
Okay. What is the current caseload per state employed case managers? And do you know the caseload per private or contracted case managers? Do you know the difference in
I do.
those? Yeah.
So privatized case managers, per their contract, they are capped at 20. And I have in front of me the caseload averages for every region, for every program. It's quite lengthy. We can talk about that here today, or I can talk about that in office. In child protective services, child safety, the case file averages are over 20, and I talked about that in my opening statement. In child programs, across all regions, the caseload caps are under 20, and in some regions they're quite low. But in child safety and in the hardest hit Davidson County, they are over the case cap of 20.
Okay, thank you. And last question, what do you believe the long-term solution is for some of your biggest issues? What does that look like moving forward? We're always trying to look out into the future and see what it holds, especially with that's why we're here,
Yes,
part
sir.
of budget. So
Yes,
we're just
sir.
trying to figure that out.
So I think we have 90 privatized case managers right now, and we employed that solution in order to try to drive down the case file averages. We deployed those in some of our hardest hit regions. Those can only be used to support foster care. They cannot be used in child safety. They're not child abuse investigators. So we're using those to support our child programs, which is why you see the case file averages in child programs far lower than in child safety. That expires in July. So if we don't get reoccurring funding in July for those 90 privatized case managers, that contract expires, and you will see the case file averages jump way up because all of those cases will fall back onto our case managers. So we see that as a pretty high priority for us. Obviously, case managers sitting with high acuity needs kids in our transitional homes. We have between 6 and 15 kids every night in offices across the state. We want to be transparent about that. The reasons for that are very high acuity needs or violent behaviors, or kids who have been bench ordered into our custody with pre-adjudicated delinquent charges, significant delinquent charges, and they cannot be commingled with other kids in transitional houses, true dependent neglect kids, and they have to be kept separate. And so they are staying overnight in an office. That means that they have to be many times one-on-one with a case manager. That really depletes our manpower. We see that as a significant challenge and has been for the 3 years that I've been here. Now, the building out of our real estate plan is going to significantly help us, which is why we put forth this plan. When those 6 new facilities are built out, and we expect that to happen, we're hoping to have ribbon cuttings by the end of 2026. Those should be managed by a private provider. The residential part of those new spaces will be managed by a residential provider, licensed and managed by a residential provider. That's going to take the bulk of our manpower out of sitting, and that's going to free up our case managers considerably. I think it's going to help morale considerably and help us manage our time, work-life balance. It's gonna help this department immeasurably. And I think those are the biggest challenges facing our department right now.
Thank you for those, and thank you for your effort, and thank you for, it wasn't too long ago, it was gloom and doom. So thank you for what you're accomplishing, and there's still some hurdles there to move forward past, but thank you for what you're doing, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Representative Hicks. And Commissioner, you mentioned a caseloads list. Could you get that? I'd love to have a copy of that. I think it was regarding types. I'd love to have a copy of that, and I'll get that out to the rest of the members if you could.
And I think it's important to say that's point in time.
Okay.
So that fluctuates every single day.
Okay,
And these are very point in time.
great.
Yes,
You can
sir.
just put that date on there so that we'll know, but I'd love to see that.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next on our list is Chairman Hawk. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Quinn, thank you and your team. I want to expound a little bit about what Papa Hicks was talking about a minute ago there. You've now told us that, yes, there are children in DCS offices. You've told us years prior that, no, there were not. I need to find out which it is. As recently as May 2025, there have been reports of children sleeping in DCS offices statewide, and that it never stopped. You mentioned the acuity level and the needs of these children that are being kept in DCS offices. What care are they getting in a DCS office for their highly needy situations that they're not getting in a placement?
So, and I thank you for that question, Chairman. And I appreciate the ability to draw the distinction. So the practice of keeping kids in offices and having nowhere else to put them ceased in March of 2022. Prior to that, we had no other option but to keep a child or youth in a DCS office. Thankfully, because of the faith-based community, we were able to employ something else, another option for kids. The Isaiah homes, Isaiah 117, and transitional homes. The faith-based community stepped up and provided homes for us. And so the wholesale practice of keeping kids in offices ceased in March of 2022. There are occasions where, because of the high acuity need of a child or the pre-adjudication delinquent charge of a child, we have to place a child in an office because they cannot be commingled with another child. And we just flat have no other option. There is no other place to put a child because there just is no other place, and we don't have a placement. I have Frank Mix with me, the Executive Director of Network Development. He can speak far more eloquently than I can about the placement challenges that we have. When a child comes into custody or a youth comes into custody, now a youth with delinquent charges that has been pre-adjudicated and bench ordered into our custody dependent neglect, the state law says that I cannot place them in a facility otherwise designed to house a juvenile delinquent. So my hands are very tied when it comes to that particular juvenile. Most residential placement facilities will not accept that juvenile with some pre-adjudicated charges, especially the more violent ones. So that juvenile then becomes extraordinarily difficult to place. The kids with the higher acuity needs, it just takes some time, some days to fully assess their issues and their needs and their challenges, and then find the appropriate placement for them. The services that they're getting inside of a DCS office are not that dissimilar from what they would get in a transitional home. Obviously, they're not in a home. They're not in a home-like setting. And that is extraordinarily unfortunate. But we made the decision 3 years ago that we were not going to put kids in hotels. We don't have the option to put them in an Airbnb. We don't have any other houses. And so they're in an office. We do take them every day to shower. We do take them to school. They do receive their education. We do employ behavioral health specialists. In some cases, we have to bring security into the offices. And there are case managers. Most of the time, there are 2 case managers with that child or with that youth while they're in the office. And I can certainly let Executive Director Mix talk to you more about the challenges with placement if you would like to hear some about that.
Ma'am, I have several questions. We may meet offline and have that discussion. I'll continue with my questions if it's at the discretion of the chairman. You mentioned
Yes.
faith-based communities that are stepping in and stepping up, and we thank them so much, but they're not professionals. Tell me the instances of these placements being made in faith-based facilities, opposite sexes and sexual assaults that are occurring therein. I have numerous incidences of anecdotal information. What is DCS policy on opposite sexes being in a placement like you've mentioned?
So we do house boys and girls together in the same house. They are appropriately supervised per ratios. There are enough case managers and private provider staff, specially trained, and in most cases, security as well. If there is the charge of a sexual assault or any type of assault, that is appropriately investigated, called into our hotline and investigated, either by our Special Investigations Unit or by law enforcement.
Chairman, thank you. Madam, if you could get us anecdotal information, just numbers, sheer numbers of how many sexual assaults have been recorded, have been reported
Okay.
in your length of service, I would appreciate that across the state of Tennessee. Lots of questions. I want to go down one more road. The General Assembly and through our budgets, we've invested millions of dollars in hiring new people. And you've mentioned some of that, some of what that has gone toward. But I'm aware that recently you have had a reduction in force. If you could please explain why you had a reduction in force. Second part of that question, there are numerous individuals, mid-level managers across the state of Tennessee who have had their employment terminated. If you could please first go down the road of why there's a reduction in force when you have told us repeatedly you need more people, need more people, need more people, and then why we have fired so many mid-level managers.
So the first question about the reduction in force is really a reclassification of positions. My predecessor took about 70 case manager positions and reclassified them to case manager assistant positions. My understanding is they took those positions out of the case manager series and made them case manager assistants in order for, because she was having such a difficult time hiring case managers. There was such a deficit in the case manager series. Case managers were really struggling with things like administrative duties and other key tasks. And they thought, well, if we hire case manager assistants, that would at least bring some assistance to the case managers. Fast forward 3 years, we don't need case manager assistants, we need case managers. The case manager assistants cannot be case managers. They are not required to have a 4-year degree because of accreditation standards. Our case managers are required to have 4-year degrees. And so we made the strategic decision to reclassify those case manager assistant positions back to case managers. And so that's what we did at the end of the summer, was take those case manager assistant positions and reclassify them back to case managers so that we could take those back to fully functioning case manager positions. That's what this department needed, was fully functioning case managers.
Before I let you answer the second question I asked, how many people are employed? Are the people there to do the work? I'm hearing they're not.
I'm not sure I understand that particular question.
You've reclassified these positions. Are all those newly classified positions filled? Are the people on the ground doing what they need to do?
So the newly reclassified positions have not been hired yet. So that is a process that we have to go through DHR. That's about a 60-day process when you notify people that their position is being reclassified. You have to give them a certain amount of time. That took them through about mid to late August. I think October 1 was the date that the reclassification came through. Martha can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but, and then you have to put those positions out for hire. So that's a process that we have to go through in order to reclassify and hire and put those positions back into the mix for case managers.
Okay. I'm not buying what you're selling. If you could additionally answer my second question, and I might have been too specific, how many mid-level positions were dismissed? Let's just use a broad number instead of the question as to why. You could give me many different reasons why. How many mid-level positions within Department of Children's Services were recently dismissed or have been dismissed during your tenure?
I can't give you the number of positions that we have terminated, but no person has been terminated that has not been terminated for cause. And of course, every state employee who is terminated has an appeals process through DOHR.
Last question. Chairman, thank you very much. Give me an idea of the ratio of foster families to the ratio of foster children. Reports I'm seeing are that we have more foster families available than we have foster children, and you're giving me these answers with placements not occurring. What is the ratio of foster families available to us and foster children needing placements?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. The math withstanding, there's roughly 5,000 foster homes that are approved in the state at any given time. We have roughly 4,200 kids placed in foster care. The balance of that are homes that are on hold, are choosing not to make placements at this time or in some other status. They may also not be willing to serve the children that we have available in need of placement at any given time. So there's a mismatch there.
Chairman Hawk. All right, next on the list, let's go to Chairman Baum. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks, and thank you, Commissioner Quinn, for being here today. Your department over time has begun using more private providers. I was wondering if you could tell us how many you're using now and maybe compare it to the number that we were using maybe 5 years ago?
Are you talking about the private provider case managers?
Well, I guess those that are providing services for foster care and for juvenile justice.
I don't think we're using any for juvenile justice. So we're using the 90 privatized case managers, and they're supporting foster care. We have the residential privatized case managers that are supporting the transitional homes. Okay. There you go.
Well, I was going to say, Frank Mix, our placement director, I'm Jim Lehman, by the way, legislative director, can speak about our network of private providers. I think we're up to, 23 or so contracted providers that are within our network, several additional ones that we use in other situations. Frank, do you want to speak more to that?
So 28 private agencies are part of the placement network. They would also employ case managers or folks who play a case manager role, either supporting foster families that are part of that private agencies network or in facility staff as well. I don't have a specific number on that, but they have to meet a staffing ratio for our kids. In foster care, there's a caseload cap for those folks as well. I know that it's not over 20. The staffing ratio in a residential program really varies based on the acuity of children they serve. The lowest is 1 to 8, or the highest is 1 to 8. The lowest is 1 to 5, and we have an agency or two who serve super challenging kids who chooses to operate at 1 to 4.
Okay, and I know we're spending approximately $100 million more on these type of private providers, so I assume that's more than we were using 5 years ago.
Yes, sir. That's a fair statement. More of our children are served in the private provider network because they're better equipped to serve young people with higher acuity needs. They are clinically based programs, therapists, psychiatrists, et cetera. We've talked previously about the shift in population of our kids towards higher acuity care. And, the simple math is kids in traditional foster care at $30 to $50 a day don't compare to kids in a clinical program that's $600 to $750 a day. And so you see that budget number moving because of that.
Okay, and then I guess my next question is, for these private providers, what kind of process do you have in place to review the services that they're providing to make sure they're being provided properly, make sure nothing inappropriate's happening? I assume there's some kind of assessment process that occurs.
Yeah, there's actually a number of strategies in place that address that. First and foremost, there's some minimal contracting requirements. Contracts expire at the end of a 5-year term, and they have to be renewed, and the provider has to meet those. Those agencies are, just like everyone else in Tennessee, subject to child abuse reporting laws and investigation as well. Many of those agencies are licensed by us, the remainder by the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, so they have to meet the licensing requirements. And then probably most significant, those agencies are also subject to review by our program monitoring and evaluation team. They have at minimum an annual monitoring review that looks across a number of domains, including safety, treatment, teaming, service delivery. for our young people as well. And then there is follow-up if there are significant deficiencies noted.
Okay. And then last question, shifting gears just a little bit. Let's suppose that DCS removes a child from a home for some reason. Maybe in this hypothetical, I could say, let's say it's because of suspected abuse by one of the parents. And so the child is removed and is in DCS custody. I would like for you to tell us about the appeals process that a parent might have if they either don't think they're an abusive parent, and they want to challenge, and they want to challenge DCS's decision. And I guess as part of your answer, I'm interested in whether you think the appeals process currently is sufficient, or whether there ought to be another layer of appeals so that a parent who believes they have been wrongly deemed to, I don't know, be an abuser or to result in their child being removed from that home, so that they can, I guess, have that decision reviewed and perhaps revoked.
So I think that depends on whether or not the one parent has actually been substantiated as an abuser. Then there's a formal appeals process. What we hope to see is if there's a lesser issue going on in the home, that you can return the child with some services. Obviously, we would hope to place the child with family while we ascertained whether or not there was a serious issue going on between the parent and the child. If there was a more serious issue and the parent was found to be sustained as an abuser, again, there is an appeals, there's a due process issue that goes to a judge, an internal judge. Then there's an appeals process, and it can go all the way up to Chancery Court. And I think that's a matter for the TCA to determine whether or not they feel like that's an appropriate appeals or due process issue for a parent. I think it's something that we're talking about internally as well. I think when you're talking about a severe abuse or sex abuse, I think whether you're talking about a parent and a child, or you're talking about a third party or a teacher or a person in authority, I think we need to make some distinction between what is neglect or something that's less severe. Right now there is no distinction between substantiation and not substantiation. So even substantiation for something that's pretty minor really rules you out from working around children and holding some jobs. And so, I think there's some discussion that probably needs to be had between substantiation and not substantiation for sort of the whole gamut of things.
And it sounds like the whole appeals process is through the court system. It's not an appeals process through DCS.
Well, it starts at DCS and then it can progress up to Chancery Court.
So you have some type of appeals process within the department.
That's correct. It starts in the department. It goes to a judge within the department, and then it goes up to our general counsel, and then it goes beyond our general counsel into Chancery Court.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chairman Baum. Next on the list, Chair Lady Moody. I don't know. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Quinn, and your whole team with you today. Appreciate y'all coming. And my question is it's more of a West Tennessee issue, I think, although one of the facilities I'll ask about is here in Nashville. But about the budget, I wrote this down, a total of $327.7 million were budgeted to build the new John S. Wilder and the Woodland Hills Secure Youth Detention Centers over the past 5 years. So I know the John S. Wilder is in Fayette with Chairman Gant, and then Tipton County, my juvenile judge we closely communicate about the issues he is seeing and the lack of a place to put these juveniles. And so we are looking forward to this. But could you give us an update on those two facilities where we are now with them?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chairman. We are finishing the design process. In fact, we are pretty close to being finished with the design process for both of those facilities. We feel pretty good about it. We are looking at where we can modify some of the facility in order to go ahead and build the expansion so that we can realize the full plus 256 beds, figuring that it is less expensive to build the expansion now than it is to come back to the legislature and ask for funds to build the expansion in 5 years, leaving the next commissioner with the burden of having to come back to the legislature and ask for expansion money when they need it. And so that is the process that we're going through right now, is seeing where we can tweak some things within the plans in order to get some expansion beds. But we are very close to being finished with the design of both facilities.
Okay, that's good. Good news. So would you say they're on time and on budget?
Yes, ma'am. We're determined to be completely, but we would hope to break ground on those facilities next year.
That sounds real good. The projected increase in capacity for each project, I know it's like looking into a crystal ball, but would you say that should be, we hope we would not need more, but would you say that would be sufficient to meet current and future needs?
It's hard to say. I mean, the pendulum swings back and forth and back and forth. When I came into the position, we had 70 kids waiting in detention. As of a year ago, that had swung down to about 20. We're seeing detention bed waits rise again. I think we're back up to 30, 40 kids in detention waiting, and the kids are waiting longer. And of course, their time doesn't start until they get in facility. That detention time doesn't count towards their sentence time. And so we really want to get them into their facilities as quickly as possible, so that they can participate in programming and get their sentence time starting. I think that's what's best for kids. And so we just don't have enough beds in the system right now. So we need to get these facilities built.
I'll amen that. So I know the issue of keeping the boys and girls separate. So these newer facilities, how do you determine how many to do for each of those categories?
So they'll be built very intentionally so that we can keep boys and girls separately, as well as ages. They'll also be built with the ability to keep a sibling group together if that becomes an opportunity, because we know that keeping sibling groups together is smart. We also want to continue to utilize our Isaiah houses with the intention and the mission with which they were built. And we're very grateful for Rhonda Paulson and her contribution to our state.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to the grand opening there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair Lady. I think we have a follow-up of Representative Gant. Representative Gant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner Quinn, I wanted to personally thank you for taking the time to invite me to come down and tour some facilities that we're going to model the new Wilder Development Center after. And it was really eye-opening to see that, and the particular model that is geared toward changing the culture of the recidivism in some of these youth. And that's where we really change things, is not just, keeping them in that revolving door, but giving them an actual opportunity to get an education, to see a path out of that recidivism. And I know this is near to the governor's heart as well to see that happen. So, but anyway, I just want to take the time to personally thank you for your investment and time that you're, spending on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to ask a question about the partnership between DDA and DCS. The DCS perspective is that Tennessee Strong Families Programs and the DDA partnership sufficiently funding to meet the needs of the population that we have. Is it currently meeting that need, or is there room for expansion, or are we grown outside of what we're able to participate with?
So there are three facets to our partnership with DDA. There's the Katie Beckett FSA funds. That appears to be sufficiently meeting the needs of young people. We have the Tennessee Strong program facilities that are serving medical kids. We have 10, I believe, 9 or 10 kids in 12 beds right now. So that pendulum swings too. You don't know who's going to the hospital today and needs placement tomorrow until it gets here. So that is fairly close on target. And then we have another program we're partnering with them on around the development of our network and the infusion of IDDD expertise into our casework processes through the assignment of an individual service coordinator. That's a new program that was funded starting this year. And so it's just starting now. It's a little hard to predict what that need will look like in the future. What we do know is that population continues to grow. We sat here several years ago with about 100 kids in specialized programming for intellectual developmental disabilities and significant autism spectrum disorders. I have 500 of those kids in placement today. And so that's a pretty significant increase over a short period of time. We think that the growth rate will slow on that, but it's not going to stop completely either. So that's sort of the lay of the land in our partnership with DDA.
You recognize.
One more question there on the four different things that you named there. I think you said it was considered a wraparound service within your report. Is all the mental health needs being met, or is there an area there that we're short on doctors or?
Probably the most significant shortage out there, and this is in the community at large, is around nursing. Young people with significant intellectual and developmental disabilities very often have complex medical needs as well as therapeutic needs that require applied behavior analysts or ABAs. Those are hard to come by on the free market, and that's really where those services come from. So building packages specific to kids that include all those components, there's opportunity there. Part of that partnership of infusing the individual service coordinator into our case planning process is designed at adding expertise to gain those services as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll try to ask 4 or 5 questions here real quick. Judges putting delinquent children into foster care?
So there are some judges who are bench ordering youth into our custody with pre-adjudicated delinquent charges, which means they've been charged with a delinquent offense, in some cases, very, very serious delinquent offenses. And instead of putting them in a detention center, they bench order them into my custody dependent neglect.
Is that impacting the overall foster care system
Well,
negatively?
we can't put them in foster care. There's no way to put those kids in foster care. We can't put a kid charged with murder into
Right,
a
okay.
foster family, because a foster family has the ability to say, no, I won't take that kid. And there's some, and Frank alluded to this, a foster family can say no, and we have to disclose to a family any issues that we know about with a child, any behavioral issues, mental health issues that sort of come with a child. You can't send a kid over and say sunshine and roses, and then you've sent a kid over that is really, really challenging. That's not fair to a child, and so to a child, or frankly to the family. And so we want to be very transparent. Some of the issue that we have, and I think this has been a question that's been asked, is we have a lot of foster families that are what we consider to be sort of level 1 foster families. They want to take level 1 kids, and we don't have a lot of level 1 kids coming into custody. Level 1 kids coming into custody, we typically place with kinship, or they're going back to biological families. They're going back to a cousin, an aunt, some other family member, because family members will take those kids. Those are not hard to place kids. It's the kids that are 2s and 3s and 4s that are very, very hard to place. And as Frank just talked about, we've got more and more and more and more and more of those kids coming into custody, and they're very, very hard to place. Now, we're employing some different strategies with those youth, and we're being successful with some of those kids. But those kids that are being adjudicated or pre-adjudicated that are coming into custody, they're very, very challenging for us.
So you have a kid that comes in and has a sense of violence and you feel like he's violent.
Mhm.
You have a caseworker that has to watch him over the weekend. How do you make sure that caseworker is protected and yet do your job at the same time? So help me out here.
Well, we have contracted security, or we've also been working with the Tennessee Highway Patrol. We have contracted with THP as well.
Okay, so you have a kid comes through, or you get him on Friday and you realize they're violent. What do you do over the weekend? So when you say you contract with Highway Patrol, how is this working?
They go into an office typically, or in some cases, every once in a while, I can get a special order from the judge that will allow me to place the child at Wilder or in a detention facility that's run by Wayne's Halfway House if there is space in that facility. Otherwise, they're going into an office with security or THP and with a case manager.
So a case manager will never be by themselves with a violent child?
No, sir. No, sir.
And Leader and I were talking earlier this morning, and you have a situation, and I can't remember who brought it up, but you have an accusation against a parent or a loved one and a child there. The process is that child will never be interviewed in front of that family member that supposedly could have done some harm. Is that correct?
That's
the protocol?
policy.
That's the policy.
They should be going to a CAC and be forensically interviewed.
Okay. Because as a parent, I understand, where are my rights? But at the same time, you want to protect the children. I mean, it's a tight line to walk. I understand that.
That's right.
All right. And then one more question. As far as all of the children that you deal with on an annual basis, how many of those children are impacted negatively by some type of alcohol, drug?
Oof.
I'm just curious.
I think that's a Tony question.
Is that the derivative of most of the problems? In my mind, it would be, but I want to hear it from you.
I think we've probably got numbers on that. I'd hate to swag that number and be really off. We keep data on that. How many kids are coming into custody that the reason for custody is drugs or alcohol? That's your question?
Well, just the problem itself. Is that the culprit of all of the problems? I'm just curious.
If I may, it is a significant portion of our population. We could get some exact numbers for you. I think just as equal to that, though, are young people with some pretty significant trauma and or clinical issues.
Okay.
As we've evolved, our acuity has changed of our population. You see a lot of kids with some pretty significant mental health issues as well. And so to say that one is more than the other, I'd be speculating, but I'd say they're both probably on par with one another.
Okay. And my last comment here is I represent the northwest portion of the state. And it's my understanding that a lot of the supervision that takes place up in my part of the world is coming from Shelby County. Is that right? Okay. That's what I've been told from some
I don't think that's correct.
Okay.
But I think we can get you
Well,
specific.
My concern is if that's the case, and it's a highly, we're pretty much a rural area, and I would just encourage as much supervision to come from that rural area for the rural area, more so than having to be supervised from people who are living or working in that Shelby County area, if that is the case.
Now, your team leaders and team coordinators are going to be right there in your counties. The assistant commissioner that oversees that entire region works out of Shelby County, but again, covers that entire region. So if that's what you're referring to, yes, the assistant commissioner physically is in Shelby,
Okay.
but the team leaders and team coordinators who really oversee the day-to-day operations, they're going to work right there in those counties with those case managers.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the list, Representative Freeman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. If memory serves, last year or earlier this year, I can't remember, we expanded services for children aging out of the foster care program. Can you address how that's going, what we're doing? Because that's a very vulnerable population that I think doesn't need to be forgotten.
Thank you for that question, Representative Freeman. Yes, we expanded foster care to 23 years of age. Very exciting. As you know, that population experiences increased homelessness, increased pregnancy rates, increased incarceration. And so I think the longer that we can keep them in services and with available case management and supports, I think the more successful they're going to be. And so I think there are several opportunities that we're looking at. We're working with Ben Brewer, who's the largest builder of affordable housing in the United States. He's working with the city of Knoxville to build affordable housing for our young people in Knoxville. He's working with HUD as well. So the young people that are in the extension of foster care program, which we have rebranded to call Bright Futures, they will receive a HUD voucher and be able to live there till the age of 25, and receive their benefits through us through the age of 23. We'll have our case managers will be on site and be supporting them through the age of 23. Once he has that fully built out, he's hoping to go to Chattanooga and do the same thing. And so we're really hoping to do this in our major cities, especially where they have opportunity to seek education and or employment. We also reduced the barriers that we had previously to participate in that program. So when I came into the position, you had to go right into the program. If you ever got out of the program, you couldn't come back into the program. So we did away with all that. You can come in at any time. You don't have to be going to school. You don't have to be employed, but you do need to be working with a career counselor, a jobs counselor, something to be furthering yourself in order to participate in the program. And so we really tried to reduce all the barriers we possibly can to make young people eligible to participate in this program, because we think it's what's best for young people.
Sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next on the list, Representative Sparks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner, last week I got invited to a Safe Baby Court. I happen to know the family that was there, and recently I got onto this young man, and he's got 4 kids. He had a addiction problem, been clean for over a year, and I got onto the young man, and my wife said, "You shouldn't get onto him. His father hasn't been in his life." Like that. And I said, well, maybe that's his problem. He needs some accountability and somebody give him some direction. But I like what the judge said, Judge Travis Lampley out of Rutherford County. He says, rarely do I ever get a chance to smile in this courtroom. Caught my attention. He said, but today I get a chance to smile because I see the reunification of a family. So that's 4 children that didn't go into the foster care system. But shout out to Jimmy Richardson, who shared a really cool poem, if I could, Chairman. And I thought it was very touching. He said, a man, you've probably heard it, some of you social workers, a man fell into a deep hole and couldn't get out of the hole. So he called for some help. Several people just passed him on by, and a doctor came and he asked for help. So he threw a prescription in the hole. Here's a prescription. Then a pastor come along and said, I'm going to pray for you. Said another man come along, So what do you need? He said, I need help. So he jumped in the hole to help him. And he says, well, now we're both stuck here. But the other guy says, no, I know the way out. I've been here. And that's why I mentioned Jelly Roll earlier. I know some people may not get it. They may not understand it. But I've seen that reunification, and I've seen the good work that y'all do. The challenges you have are enormous. Your budget's doubled since 2015. It's $1.4 billion. Incarceration budget continues to grow. The brokenness continues to grow. The revenues aren't going to be here, members. It's not going to be here in the next few years. So we got to find ways to do more with less, cost cutting, efficiencies. As fiscal conservatives, we should be concerned with it. But what can we do to improve the Safe Baby Court? Because I only seen a few families, and I was thinking, why aren't we touching 20 families, 50 families? What can we do to invest in those Safe Baby Courts and do more across the state?
So obviously, Chairman Hale is we consider him the father of Safe Baby Courts. He has really championed this program. I talked about in my opening that we think it is the best prevention program for 0 to 3. We're in 22 courts. We think that the slow expansion of Safe Baby Courts has allowed it to be really successful. If we expand too quickly, we don't think it will be as successful. Our drug teams are working very, very closely with the Safe Baby Courts. It's important that the parents have the necessary supports, and we've used opioid funds in order to create the supports for families, for the drug addicted parents. I think the judges have been incredible. The courts have been incredible partners. The AOC has been an incredible partner. The Department of Mental Health has been an incredible partner. I think this is a shining example of state agencies working together to make this program work. The few number of maltreatment, the few numbers of kids reentering custody really speaks to the success of the program. I think the more we do of this, the better. I think the name of the game is keeping families together, exiting kids from custody. I think that's, as a state, where we need to put our focus.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. Much of what I was going to ask has been answered about the youth development centers. I have followed the progression of the one in Nashville from when it was Spencer to when it was Woodland Hills to when it was, I think, Gateway to Independence, and then it was the Volunteer Academy. But I'm particularly interested as you began to build it out on the educational space there. I have particular interest in that space. I know that you're going to be building it out, and just want to stay in touch as you work on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list, Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner DCS, thank you for being here. Quick question, 2 questions, Mr. Chair, if I might. How does the Department of Children's Services view the different child advocacy centers throughout the state? They're on the more private side as they deal with the forensic interviews of children. I've become very intimately acquainted with the one in my district in Sevier County. I'm a massive fan of it. Mm-hmm. We help them as much as possible. And I just like to know, how do y'all view them, and what is your relationship with the CACs in Tennessee?
We have a great relationship with the CACs. I think they do a tremendous service to the families of the state of Tennessee. I think the forensic interviews are an integral part of child safety and child abuse investigations. I think they serve a great, it's a great opportunity for law enforcement to gather evidence that then allows, I think, law enforcement and child safety to meet through SIPIT and determine whether or not a charge can be brought. I think our partnership with the CACs is incredibly important. I think you have one of the best ones in the state, honestly. But I think there are a number of incredible CACs across the state. I think some struggle. There are some, very small ones that struggle, but I think there are some that are just knocking it out of the park.
Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks. So to sum up what I hear you saying is you do value the
Absolutely.
partnership that y'all have
We
with
couldn't
the
do without it.
CACs. Have any of y'all visited, like physically been to any of the CACs and observed what they're doing, and more than just seeing what they're saying with the guardian ad litem court, you've had feet on the ground at the CACs?
I mean, I've been to them since being in this job, but I have been to them prior to this
Okay.
job. I've been to the CACs when I was the CEO at Ancora, and I've been to the CACs as a TBI personnel. I mean, I've been to the CACs
So
for
you're
years.
all intimately acquainted
Oh,
with
yes.
them now? Okay.
Yes.
And final question, Mr. Chair. Obviously, many departments of our state get involved in a lawsuit, and I believe we're currently involved in a lawsuit.
Yes.
Can you bring us up to speed are you allowed to talk about that? A few years ago, the comptroller found out there was some serious issues of us not providing basic needs for children. It's one of the things that kind of led to that lawsuit. Where are we at for whatever you can speak to the lawsuit? And is the next audit going to find anything like that?
So we are finishing up our current audit, and we will have our GovOps hearing on December 16th. And so we are waiting the draft report. We don't have the draft report yet in our hands, so I can't really speak to what the draft report's going to say. I can't really answer questions about the lawsuit. And our general counsel is not here with us today, but she would be frowning at me if I answered any questions about the lawsuit. But the AG's office really speaks for us with regards to the lawsuit.
All right, thank you, Chairman Faison. And the last person on the list, Representative Capley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, real quick, how many children have passed away in DCS's care in the last 5 years?
I think I know this year, I can tell you this year, as of last week, there were 168. The last 5 years, that's death and near death.
Those are not in care, though. Those are just notifications.
Yes, those are notifications, death and near death that we've investigated,
Yeah,
are 168. In care, I'll have to get that
Very-
number for you.
Commissioner, I almost fell out of my
What-
chair.
Excuse
right
me?
now, So
Those
thanks for,
those are the death and near death cases that we've investigated this year. In custody, in custody,
okay.
I'll have to get that number for you.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you.
If I may, Chairman, so what Commissioner was referring to, there's several statutory criteria
Yeah.
whereby we notify legislators if there's been a child death or near death. Most often, by far, those are cases where we have recently investigated the family. So the child is not in custody. We just have been out recently. That's a statutory criteria. A lot of the cases are a case in which a child death resulted in the investigation of another child. So a child died and they had siblings, and we wanted to make sure those siblings were in a safe situation, right? And then also, if a child in custody passes away, as Commissioner said, we, send up to, close to 200 of those a year. I can get you the specific data, but I can tell you that it is a very small number of the kids that are actually in custody.
custody.
Maybe a handful or so is what you're
Mhm.
going to find. I would venture to say 99% sure it's less than 10. I'm guessing it's probably more like 3
Well,
or 4.
and I would say 99% of those are passing from natural causes. In other words, they came into custody with significant medical issues, or they came into custody at birth and were going to pass within days of birth. And so they pass. We see that happens.
Representative Kaplan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And just to follow up to that, if you could, that would be interesting data to see how many children under your custody only that has passed away. If you could get that to my office, and I'll get that out to the rest of the members. That is all the time we have for DCS. Commissioner Quinn, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and for answering our questions. And with that said, as we transition over to the Department of Disability and Aging, I'll ask Commissioner Turner to please be making his way up, and thank you all again, DC. Members, before we do move on to the Department of Disability and Aging, I am going to recognize Representative Freeman. Representative Freeman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. And I would like to recognize a young lady who's here watching us from Harpeth Hall, Oakley Webster, is a junior at Harpeth Hall, is doing a reporter at large project for her English class, and she chose to come down and watch what we're doing here. So everybody be on their best behavior. And Oakley, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. All right, we are now going to hear from the Department of Disability and Aging. We do have Commissioner Turner in front of us, so if you would please introduce yourself and your staff. Thank you again for being
Yes, sir.
here.
Thank you, Chairman Hicks. Appreciate it. Thank you, committee, for having us. To my immediate left is Jordan Allen, my Deputy Commissioner for Program Operations. To my immediate right is Andy Kidd, my Deputy Commissioner for Administrative and Fiscal Services. To his right is David Comer, Budget Director. And then probably the most powerful man in Tennessee politics is on his right. Everybody knows Trey Jones, and he does a great job for us as our Legislative Director. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it to honor the committee's time, and I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Kidd.
Thank you.
Chairman and committee members. We've got quite a few things to go over, so I'm going to go pretty quickly, and then we'll jump in with any questions you might have. Just a heads up, the first two slides around program status and grant administration. These aren't all the programs that we have, but these are the highlighted programs that we've really started since fiscal year 20. But obviously, we can answer any questions about any of the other programs that we have. The first program that we're going to talk about is the Katie Beckett Part B program. This was launched in November of 2020. This provides up to $10,000 per child annually for premium assistance, respite, and home-based care. And in 2025, we served 4,880 children, and we currently have 4,700 slots with 747 children on the waiting list. The next line item is the Tennessee Early Intervention System. This transitioned from the Department of Education to DDA in July of 2021. And this delivers early intervention for infants, toddlers, and with those intellectual and developmental delays. We currently support 14,349 active children in the program today, and we've served over 22,000 families in fiscal year 25. The next program is our MAPS program. This provides independence, employment, and community engagement. Participants can access up to $20,000 per year in those services. We currently have 1,250 slots and 723 individuals in that program today. The next up is our Tennessee START assessment and stabilization teams. We have 5 regional crisis response teams that provide 24/7 stabilization for individuals with IDD with a co-occurring behavioral or mental health needs. The next program I'm going to have Deputy Commissioner Allen update us on.
Am I on? Yep. Thanks. I asked Andy if I could present on this one because, one, I wanted to thank you as our Tennessee legislature for appropriating the $1 million that we've used to give 2,094 people the opportunity to realize their dream of living more independently, utilizing the same technology we all use all day and every day and maybe take for granted. And then also tell this committee that the return on your investment at this point from data that we pulled just last month is 13.5 to 1. So the theory that we had that people with disabilities could utilize technologies to live more independently is unequivocally proven true. And it's because of your effort and your investment that over 2,000 people are living a more independent and self-directed life today. So thank you.
There we go. I think I skipped one, so I sent it to you too early. We need to go back to the Tennessee Strong Families program. That's a partnership with DCS, and I believe you guys spoke a little bit about that in the last hearing with DCS. But we're currently serving 1,089 children served, at least in fiscal year 25. 22 of those were in-home placements, so they were actually in our community homes, and we were providing direct care to those kids. And then another 1,067 foster families with the health reimbursement account program that we have with them. And then the last program on this list is the Alzheimer's Disease Program Initiative, the ADPI. This supports Tennesseans living with Alzheimer's and related dementias and their caregivers by improving home and community-based services. And in fiscal year 2025, we served 566 individuals there. On the next slide, I'm just going to give a quick overview of where we stand with total grants since 2020. We've administered over 900 grants, totaling over $300 million in different grants. So obviously, that's not all of the grants that we do on this list, but these are the highlighted ones that we wanted to mention. Adult changing tables, we've been able to install 68 different locations. We still do have about $500,000 left in the $1 million recurring that the General Assembly appropriated for it. We've also executed 527 grants for senior centers across the state of Tennessee. Our Tennessee Believes program, which expands inclusive higher education for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We've either expanded or created 10 different programs across colleges and universities and served over 400 students in those programs. Next up is our respite ministries, and I think Commissioner Turner wanted to say a few things about this one.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Jordan touched on, I want to thank the committee and the legislature body as a whole for your investment in this. This was an incredibly important investment for families that do not have avenues for folks to help support their loved ones because of the burnout that is created around a caregiver. One of the things that we really started to try to do is challenge ourselves around the nonprofit space, the faith-based communities, and that has been received incredibly well. We've had a number of startup ministries that have happened, a number of nonprofits that have reached out to us to engage in how they can better support Tennesseans with disabilities and Tennesseans who are aging, who might have Alzheimer's, might have dementia, to provide better care for them. And frankly speaking, just to give the caregivers a break for a minute to try to catch their breath before they can go back into that space. And so, as Andy said, we've had almost 35 programs launched since we have done this investment. And that's a credit to you, and that's a credit to the folks that have stepped up across the state to do it. I think most on this committee have shared this sentiment and understand government cannot do everything. We need people in the private sector to help us. And this is reflective of Tennesseans stepping up as they normally do. So I just want to say thank you for your investment in this, because it is paying a difference all for Tennesseans who need this sort of help.
Thanks, Commissioner. The next program or grant pool is Senior Nutrition and Food Access, and this is a collaboration with our area agencies on aging and disability and our senior centers to provide home-delivered and congregate meals. And this supports 150 meal sites across all 95 counties. Next program is Inclusive Playgrounds. The General Assembly allocated $2.5 million in non-recurring in fiscal year 24, and this supported 7 different projects across the state for inclusive playgrounds. The next update we're going to give is about our capital improvements. Again, there's several other smaller capital improvements, but we wanted to focus on our large capital improvement, which is the construction of 3 new regional seating and positioning clinics and related offices. The department was provided a total of $180 million in capital improvement funds through the Financial Stimulus Accountability Group. And so wanted to just give a quick update, and I'll show you some pictures of kind of where we are today. The East Tennessee Regional Office is about 40% complete. The middle office is about 60%, and West Tennessee is about 98%. In fact, they're doing the walkthrough this week and should be moving into that facility in the next month or so. So this first picture is a rendering of what it'll look like. Just kind of an example of the modernization of it. The picture on the left is our old kind of waiting area for the West Tennessee Regional Office. This was not intended to be a clinic when it was built almost 100 years ago, but we repurposed it, made it a seating and positioning clinic. But then you can see on the right, although it's not completely decorated yet, it is a much nicer facility, much nicer waiting area for those people that we support in the clinics. And then the top two pictures are the entryways to two of our clinics. Needless to say, we try to maintain those the best we can, but again, they're 100-year-old buildings, things fall apart. Landscaping is lackluster. So if you see the one on the bottom, that's an actual picture. That's not a rendering. That's our West Tennessee Regional Office where people can pull right up and be able to access our clinic easily. All right, now we're going to go over our COVID relief funding, and this is just a quick overview. We received over $241 million in combined COVID relief funding. The first one was the original CARES Act funding, about $400,000. This was for essential pandemic-related expenses. The next one was for our Tennessee Early Intervention Part C ARPA grant. This was $4.6 million, and this was primarily supporting provider capacity, technology upgrades, and family access to developmental therapies. The next line item we just talked about, which was the ARPA funding for our regional office projects. We've actually spent and I apologize, going back to the first two, we've expended all of the funds that we were allocated for those. The ARPA regional office project, we've spent about $93 million, and we are anticipated to spend almost all of the $180 million on those construction projects. The next line item is for ARPA grants for the Division of Aging. These are grants that expired prior to fiscal year 25. We were allocated $27.4 million and we spent $27.18 million. And then we have some that just expired on September 30th, and we were allocated $28.5 million for that. We have already spent and paid $27.3 million. We've got about a delta of 1.2 that are currently in that invoicing and payment process. So we anticipate we'll spend almost all of those dollars as well. Then we'll go to the last overview, and it's just a federal funding overview, just for your awareness. The Tennessee Early Intervention System receives almost $4 million in direct federal funding. That other line item is TennCare funding, so that funding comes from TennCare. For the Commission on Aging and Disability, we received $33.9, almost $34 million in direct federal appropriations for that program. All the other DDA programs are a mixture of state funding as well as other funding, being that TennCare match. TennCare does the drawdown through the FMAP process, and they're able to do the state federal match on their side, and then that comes to us for operational expenses. So I know that was a lot, but I'll turn it back over to Commissioner to see if he has anything to say.
Yeah, thank you again for your time today. Andy does a great job always presenting and does a good job with his team in building this budget and sharing it with you. So happy to turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, to answer any questions that the committee might have.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. All right, let's begin. First on the list is going to be Representative Gant. Representative Gant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner and team being here. In 21, the TEIS program was transferred from the Department of Education to DDA along with 262 positions and $56 million in funding. Since then, program funding has nearly doubled to $106 million with 379 positions and expanded to serve children under their 5th birthday. Can you provide an update on this program and the recent expansion to cover a child under their 5th birthday, and what outcomes are being reported, and how much has that program participation grown? And lastly, is the program sustainable at its current level of funding? And we can kind of go back through these questions as you progress.
Yeah, thank you for your grace there, because I was trying to keep track in my head of the questions. But it's been incredibly well implemented. Very proud of Kelly Hyde, who's my assistant commissioner for TIS, and her entire team both in Nashville and statewide as they've done that. One of the things that we knew would be an impact, but didn't realize how much of an impact it would be, is a lot of these very rural and local school districts may not have the resources to support the children before age 3 as they start moving into that preschool and pre-K timeline. The program expansion has now allowed parents to have that choice of choosing between keeping their child in the early intervention program or sending them to their local school district. And that was a huge part of that, Representative Gant, is a lot of the parents were telling us that they were interested in the choice that they could make for their child. And this program helped facilitate that. The other thing I think is incredibly important is we have started to see an uptick in families staying inside the program. So there's very, very clearly been the investment that we've needed in that, but I think also the outcomes that they're looking for. So each child's outcome can be different. They each have different outcomes that might be set based on the developmental delay of the child, but we're tracking that. One of the things I think that Tennessee should be really proud of is we have had other states call us to figure out exactly how we've implemented that, because Tennessee is the only state in the country that had the foresight to say, hey, we need to do a little bit better here and we want to expand that program. And I think we've done really well with that. And then I will let Andy answer any of the fiscal questions, but very proud of that. And I think at the end of the day too, because we're investing on the front end for children, they're much less expensive than when I come back to you when they're 18 or 19, because we didn't invest when they were 3 or 4 years old. And I think we're going to see some of that in the long term as well.
Yes, sir, about the funding question, and we're very close on how much we think we need for the program to continue to be sustainable. We have had conversations with Finance and Administration and the Governor's Office about rates as well as potential growth in the program. We've slowed down on growth. The first few years, we were seeing more like 10% referral growth, meaning we're just having more kids referred to the program. That referral rate has slowed down a little bit, but we do want to make sure that our rates are aligned. So we don't see major fiscal impacts with that program moving forward. We're pretty sustainable at the point, although you will see some increases just with an inflationary cost and things like that.
Representative Gant.
Mr. Chairman, I think that answers my questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Next on the list, Chairman Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to your all's part of the partnership with DCS and ask, how many beds are currently available through the Tennessee Strong Families partnership? I think y'all said you had like 1,000 and some people and then 714 or something in the wait list.
I'll address part of that first. That's a little bit of a different program, but Jordan can answer directly to the beds. I think what you're referencing right there is the direct support of individuals that would be in the Tennessee Strong Homes that DCS probably talked about in their presentation. So I'll let Jordan talk a little bit about that portion of the program.
Yes, sir. So that program is really split up into two, and very quickly in an overview, the first is a direct service program where we offer 12 beds in total, serving candidly the young people with the highest level of medical acuity in the custodial system. The second is a program that's serving a little over 850 people and families right now that are in the foster system. And essentially what we've done is introduce and someone with IDD expertise to help the family, one, understand what the disability means, and two, understand best practice approaches for treatment, and then to provide a linkage between that foster family, that child, and the appropriate supports. Some of those are clinical supports, other are as simple as equipment needs, or as Commissioner was talking about, access to early intervention supports. Overall, the metric that we're using to gauge the effectiveness of that program is rate of stability, and that is exactly what it sounds like. Previous to engagement with these foster families and kids, about 20% of those kids made it for 1 year with that foster family. Post joining that program, 90% of those children that have joined, of that 850, have made it a duration of at least 1 year or longer, which certainly we're thrilled about, but has proved the concept. Does that answer your question about? Yes, sir. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Did that real quick before your question. I want to drive home what Jordan just said there, that over 90% of these children now have stable families because of the investment of these dollars, which has created a much more stable network for DCS to be able to operate in. But specifically for these children, I'm not sure who asked it earlier, but the conversation happened around, well, how do we prevent them from keep going back in the system? Well, keep them out of the system. and invest in that. And you have done that, and this program has done that. And I think all of us would take, 91% success rate every day in any government program. And I'm happy to report that's exactly what's happening.
Mr. Chairman, one more question. Going back to a similar question that Chairman Grills had asked earlier, as far as the kids you're seeing coming through state custody, does most of them have just behavioral problems, or is it a mental health issues, or what? Why are they coming through state custody?
It can be a number of those things. So parents, I think the most tragic thing for us, and I've talked to Commissioner Quinn about this a lot, is I can't imagine the trauma on a mom and dad that says, the only thing I can do to help my child is turn them over to the government. And that's what we've forced these parents to do. And so I can't speak for them why that's happening. I can tell you that what is happening is that some of these children are being, behavioral is a big one. And we're seeing more incidents of children that are younger in age having much more challenging behavioral things. I go back to the COVID pandemic. COVID didn't create this. It forced parents to have to deal with some really ugly realities, and it forced government to have to do the same thing, that we've got to figure out how to invest better in these programs. So we are seeing a mix of that. I think you touched on something that's incredibly important. For years, you've seen the disability community be discriminated against around mental health because people would say they're acting like that because they have a disability. Like, nothing could be further from the truth. So we're really starting to peel back the layers of that onion to understand that people with disabilities can have mental health challenges. And so we are seeing a little bit more of that, but we're also becoming much more agile to be able to deal with those mental health challenges. That's why the Tennessee START team is incredibly important. We've dropped the number of emergency calls in that community by 85%. So you're talking about a lot of very rural areas that don't need to have the cops called because nobody knows what to do to a child that has autism. So there's a number of things that are causes of that. All I can do is try to do what Scripture tells me, and is you better be there to help them when they need it. And so we're there to help them when they need it. And I'm proud of the work that we've done.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Crawford. One question that I have, and before I guess ask my questions concerning DSPs, and I do want to bring to the attention of the good work we've been able to do there as a state, how we've increased that from $10 back just several years ago up to $15.37. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the strong advocate for the DSPs is Chair Lady Hazelwood. She worked tirelessly to try to get those folks to the income that we now see. And so certainly appreciative of those monies. I think it is beyond well spent, and very appreciative of all those providers. But so we have moved the needle from 10 up to now 1537, but how does this compare to states around us?
It probably depends on how we define states around us. We have certainly done much better. And that has been the feedback that we've gotten from provider agencies, that it's a little bit easier for them to hire now and maintain the stability. The challenge for us is making sure that we're not playing catch up all the time, Chairman Hicks. And that's certainly not an indictment on anybody in this room or what has happened. I'm very grateful for the direction that we're moving. We're competitive with some of the states around us, but I'm not good at being in second place. I like leading the pack and getting the blue ribbon. And so we're going to continue to push that. The DSPs, when I say this, they are the angels on the shoulders of people that they support. There's no other way for me to word that outside of we need them way more than they need us. And the feedback that we've gotten from them is that they love the people that they support. Well, we've done a great job of trying to honor that by getting them back up to where they need to be with this wage increase. And I'm certainly proud to hear the committee being partners in that with us to make sure that we continue to move that needle the right way so we continue to have the right supports for people that need it.
How about recruitment and retention for DSPs? What does that look like?
It's helped. Now, it's still a challenge. I need to be clear. That's like saying that I've got a little bit of hair left. It may be there, but you see the obvious. That's helped. But yeah, and that's not for Representative Hawk or anybody. That was just for me. I wasn't pointing fingers at anybody on the committee. It has helped the provider agency significantly. One of the challenges that we run into, it's a very hard job. And so whatever we can do to try to figure out how do we retain, one of the things that we've had conversations about is, do we work with the school districts or with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development to create career paths for DSPs to move into special education or move into other areas? So we're working on things outside of it. Can't just be money that fixes the problem, but in this instance, it sure as heck helps.
Absolutely. Thank you. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for your hard work. I think
You guys reported on the 3 offices that are under construction. First of all, I'd say congratulations on being the first one to spend their money and get it done in a reasonable amount of time that we've talked to today. It is obviously a challenge to deliver a new facility. And it's great to see the progression of where those projects are. But I thought, because I had some questions regarding that, but what I didn't hear, maybe you could answer, is what communities do those 3 facilities will they be in once they're open?
Sure, they're on the campuses of our old institutions. So one in Arlington, one here in Nashville for Stewart's Ferry Pike, and one in Greenville.
Okay. I did want to also bring up last year, our resident leader / bulldog, William Lambert, had an opportunity to visit the Harold Jordan Center as it relates to the possibility of opening some beds. After much prodding, I guess you could say, he was able to allow them to free up some revenue to open some additional beds because of the passage of a bill that he had worked on so diligently, Jillian's Law. We've seen that since that law has passed, that more than 150 people have been deemed by the courts unfit for trial and therefore being appointed to some kind of care as it relates to their mental health. I know the Harold Jordan Center originally had 4 beds that were available. They had a capacity for 28. With William Lambert's leadership, we were able to figure out how to get them to 8 beds with the possibility of 12. I was wondering if you could give us an update on that, and also give us an idea, because of this demand, what a suggestion might be, because we're obviously going to need, if that's just in the Middle Tennessee region and with this statutory change, what it means is that we're not incarcerating those who are mentally ill. We're getting the help that they so desperately need to make sure they don't reoffend again. And so I was wondering if you could tell us what that landscape looks like after that legislative change and what's happened at the Harold Jordan Center.
Sure. I mean, and certainly appreciate Leader Lambert's leadership on that, because that's something that we're very open to make sure that we support people. So we are staffed and we are receiving referrals. I think one of the things to your question that we want to make sure people know or are aware of is this program is available. It is an active program. And so one of the things that we run into is sharing that information with judges and municipalities and law enforcement leadership so they understand that this program is staffed, this program is funded. If you make referrals and we have space available, that's the intent of the program. So all of that is happening right now. I just think one of the things to your question is we want to make sure people are aware of it. So we'll take all the help we can get from the committee so people in your area of Tennessee know that this is available. And you brought up a really good point. I mean, one of the things is sometimes, we think, well, that individual has a disability and they couldn't have committed that. There are some people that are aware of what they're doing, and there's punishment for that. There's consequences as a result of those actions. So we're not in the legal system or the justice system, but we understand that sometimes people need to be held accountable for that. So we want to work with folks that we can rehabilitate and help, but we also want to be very respectful of the law enforcement and the judicial process, where if those individuals do become placed in our care, we understand what we're dealing with and making sure that we can also protect the communities as well by better serving them in our location.
Right. And in the event they are found mentally fit, eventually that they could stand trial for the crimes in which they commit,
correct.
which I think is really important to victims across the
And
state.
let me add one thing to that too. We're also working very, very closely with Commissioner Stride and Department of Corrections on how do we better serve individuals that are deemed competent, might go through the judicial system and then placed into one of their facilities or in some sort of program they might have, so we can also support individuals. I think you touched on a lot of, the governor has said it a lot, and I think this committee is aware, but a lot of these folks are going to be back into society at some point. And so what we're trying to do is better prepare individuals that would fall under our purview. So if they are placed back in society, it's done the right way, the safe way, and members of the community are protected and feel safe as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, sir.
I do know, to change hats a little bit, 3 years ago, the legislature decided to try a pilot program as related to respite care for families who were experiencing, as my grandmother had, as you probably know, had Alzheimer's for many years, and it was harder on the family than it was on anyone. The whole reason why the legislature decided to roll out this pilot program is to really see if, like in other states like Florida and Texas, whether a respite program for Alzheimer's care for not just the the people suffering for Alzheimer's, but their families as well, necessitated, and of course, in the legislature, we've never met a pilot program that didn't work forever. But on the other hand, what we want to do is be able to look at that. And we're going to be looking to you in the future to tell us, is this working? Is it
Yes,
not
sir.
working? Should we make additional investment in it? If you could give us an update. Obviously, you reported, and I know Representative Jones was very passionate about some capital monies as relates to helping that as well this past spring. Wondered if you could give us an update on that and the pilot program. I think we modified the language a little bit this past year to allow us to extend those resources that were unused for another year, even though it was would be the 4th year of the pilot. Wonder if you could give us an update on that and what result you're kind of seeing from that. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. So the Alzheimer's and Dementia Respite Program has been wildly successful. We've been able to serve over 700 caregivers and provide that respite for them. This is an estimated $14 million in savings of unpaid caregiver support. So realistically, what that looks like is at some point, caregivers are unpaid, right? And if they get burned out, where do those people go? They have to go to some form of state facility that we end up paying as, taxpayers. And so if we can provide those funds for the respite, it really is just game changing and life saving for the caregivers. And so really, really good there. We still have some funds left over, so we're still working through that. We're anticipating that for fiscal year 27, we'll have all the reporting and data information that you guys can have a educated decision come this budget cycle.
Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate your hard work.
All right, thank you, Chairman Williams. Next on the list is Chairman Hawk. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
Just like you guys. Thank you, Chairman, and forgive me if I misanswer this. I was talking to Chairman Faison about hair care products, so I apologize.
All right, that's good. I may take you up on that.
We've got, as of this current budget, we're roughly at 1,900 employees across DDA. And we do have a few long-term vacancies, and just want to ask what those vacancies may be held for. And a follow-up question about the 3 new facilities that we're working on as well across Tennessee.
Pretty much anybody up here can answer the vacancies. I'll let Andy do it, but I can tell a lot of those are around making sure we have capacity to support people. And once those programs expand, we have positions that are available, but I'll let Andy kind of piggyback off that.
Yeah, the specific numbers are we have 214 vacant positions. 171 of those are direct care. Those are people in homes or vacancies for the homes that we support people directly.
And Chairman, a follow-up, as we're looking at the new DDA East, Middle, and West, if you could talk a little bit about the potential employment that we may see at these sites as they come online over the next 12 months, as well as maybe if you could tease us a little bit as you're talking about services. And this, what I missed, if Chairman Williams asked this, forgive me for being redundant, but what type of services we may be expecting at these facilities across Tennessee as well?
Well, there's certainly going to be opportunities for folks that are in that community. I mean, the point is that the local boots on the ground do it best. And so that's certainly not going to be something that we're going to be trying to navigate from Nashville. We've got regional directors that have an incredible amount of experience and knowledge. Jordan's team's done a great job of hiring people that are smart. But the things that I'm really excited about is the impact it's going to have on the communities, Representative Hawk, that historically have not had access to these types of services and supports at this level. So there's going to be innovation centers that utilize technology. We're going to be working with, we just had a meeting with a very well-known technology company around what are things that we can do to partner together to make sure that health outcomes are a little bit better for Tennesseans who are aging and Tennesseans who have disabilities. So it's not just going to be something that's for us. We want it to be a community engagement, whether that's employment, whether it's people being supported. We want to make sure we have programs that are reflective of the needs in that community, but also pulling in that community feedback to say it'd be great if we had something like this. So we've also built in flexibility in what we're developing. We don't want to be so rigid. There are way too many government programs that are so rigid, nobody can make exceptions. We want to listen to what people are telling us that they need, and that's how a lot of these programs have come online. And we're going to be able to do the same things with these regional offices and the programs that are going to be run out of those offices as well. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Grills. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman, and Commissioner Turner, good to see you.
Yes,
And
sir.
I'm just impressed by every time someone asks a question, you've got somebody giving an answer. That leadership definitely matters, and it shows today that you got a well-run crew.
Thank you.
And I like the haircut, by the way.
Sir, that is, they are in spite of me and not because of me.
Well-
I promise you that.
That may be the case, but you got a good crew.
Thank you.
Over here in the grant administration, if you would look at that slide there, over in 2022, you had 400,000. Now you got $5 million. Is that meeting the current needs?
I'm sorry, which one?
Right there at the senior center grant program.
It's meeting a need, but if you ask me, Brad, could we do more? Unequivocally, yes.
Okay. I was blown away. We got a $45,000 grant back home.
Yeah.
Within the last month, and the amount of people that come up to me and we're excited about it.
Right.
If it was a $5 million grant for the industrial park, it wouldn't have meant near as much as that $45,000
That's
grant
right.
did. And I was blown away to that. So anyhow, kudos to what you do there.
Thank you.
And all the people there that are receiving benefits from those senior services.
Well, and if I can too, it's important to recognize that local leadership that care about the people in their community, because we can provide the dollars, but they're actually the heart and soul of what's happening. So kudos to the senior center you're referencing, because they're the heart and soul of that. And so anytime we can step up and help them, a lot of these folks, they don't, I read a letter that I received the other day from a lady that said, before the grant happened and the food program gave me access to this food, all I ate was microwavable meals, and I would hope that I would get a hot meal once a week at a senior center.
Yeah.
We have to do better than that. And so these grants and these food programs that those dollars can go to are creating that environment. And so is our partnership with the Department of Agriculture under Commissioner Hatcher, now under Commissioner Holt, that's actually getting fresh fruits and vegetables from local Tennessee farmers into the hands of the most vulnerable in the community. And those dollars are helping to purchase that as well.
I'd like to talk to you more about that
Yes, sir.
particular
I would
program,
love
maybe
to.
not right now, but later.
Sure.
I also have a brother-in-law that's autistic,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't speak well until he was 5 or 6 years old. Probably shouldn't have ever really amounted anything with the start that he got. Graduated #1 in high school, got his master's. Now he's working for the IRS, contributing to society.
Yeah.
Because he had a mom and a dad who actually invested in him.
Yes, sir.
But there's so many people across, especially rural Tennessee, that are autistic that don't necessarily have the services that they need, or nor the parents that have the ability to get the services. How are you, or what can you do to expand services for the autistic community and especially in the rural parts of the state?
Yes, sir. So that's a big part of why we've expanded TEIS. Katie Beckett, obviously with TEIS, more and more children are being diagnosed earlier with autism. We've seen a rapid increase in the diagnosis. That's probably a whole separate conversation. But we're trying to make sure that these programs are getting to the most vulnerable that need it. Truthfully, we work very closely with TennCare, and I don't want to step on Andy's toes here. TennCare has been a good partner with us, helping us establish rates where providers actually are able to provide the service, because we have increased the rates to support them. One of the things that we're doing, and Jordan and I talk about this all the time, is making sure that our provider network is strong and stable. So the ones that do deliver services in those communities, I mean, you said it, especially in your area, if one provider leaves a rural area, that can be catastrophic. Right. And that's not overstating that. So we're making sure that the providers are being funded adequately, but we're also making sure that people know that we will get to them. So we have mobile clinics that we send up there. We utilize technology now. So folks that are comfortable with technology, might be nonverbal, but they can communicate through technology. They have a voice. So we're trying to make sure we're doing everything for them instead of asking them to do everything for us, because that's completely backwards.
I know Kentucky has a pretty robust autism program and some of the things that they're doing. Are you working with other states to kind of get the best ideas?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
assuming that's what
we do. We do, and Vanderbilt. So we work very closely with Vanderbilt here at the Kennedy Center on those sorts of conversation around autism. We had a conversation with Pennsylvania. A friend of mine happens to be the director up there. So yes, sir, we do work with other states to make sure. And that's the one thing, I think that's been good for all of us in our space. You have to check your ego at the door. Like, it's not about us getting the ribbons or the gold medals. It's about the people live independently for the first time ever, and they don't even know our names. That's what success looks like for our department, is making sure people are winning. They don't need to know about me. I'm more worried about what Christ says to me. Did you do what I told you to do? And were you a good and faithful servant?
Well,
I'll worry about my accolades later.
Well, thank you so much for your leadership and the candor by which you operate your office and run your office.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Grills. Next on the list is Leader Camper. Leader Camper, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about your Alzheimer's disease program initiative. Can you speak to that program, some of the stuff that's available?
Yeah. Which page was, I'm sorry. I've got my glasses
Right
here and
there
I
on the
didn't put them
bottom, on the
on.
bottom of this page.
Oh, yeah, the caregiver. Yes, ma'am. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that we were just talking about that we're working on, making sure that we've got an opportunity to expand that if the need is there. Everything that we have seen so far, Leader Camper has said that there's a growing need there. We're getting more and more folks that are being diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Obviously, the Pat Summit Clinic in Knoxville and conversations we've had with groups in Chattanooga are telling us that that need is growing. So we're trying to get in front of that, but that program has been successful. We just want to make sure that we figure out how to maintain that so people don't go backwards. If we say, hey, all of a sudden we got to cut back on that because we're not sure it's really working. Everything that we've done has been built up to making sure that it continues to grow, and it has done that.
Yeah, because it says here 566 individuals statewide. I didn't think that was a lot of people based on what I was perceiving. The
And you would be
need
right.
is if you say that it's best that the Alzheimer's person stay in their home and not in a facility,
Yes, ma'am.
then there's not, that number looked quite small to me.
Yes, ma'am. And we're always working to make sure that people are aware of those programs. Sometimes it happens that people are not aware, they might not. So one of the things that our communications team has done really well is we're trying to exercise and utilize multiple avenues of communication through targeted advertisements, social media, partnerships with community providers, people in that area so they can promote what's available. One of the things I think that we're going to continue to try to do is figure out how do we get even closer with boots on the ground and make sure that people know what programs are available instead of just relying on them to think, well, they can just check our website. We've tried to really evolve from that and make sure that we're being super strategic, and our comms team's done a really good job of that.
One last question, Mr. Chairman.
Leader Camper.
So it's not a funding issue per se that there aren't dollars available to do this.
Correct. Where it's folks that are actually utilizing and are aware of the program, and that's why we're making sure they know that the program's available so those dollars do get utilized.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And members, Leader Camper was the last person on the list. So Commissioner Turner, thank you and your staff for being here. Thank you, certainly, for what you do for
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Tennesseans. All right, without objection, we're going to go back into session. We are back in session, and that does complete our calendar for today. Just a reminder, the budget hearings will resume tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. in House Hearing Room 1, so right here where you're at. Is there any further business coming before the committee? Hearing none, seeing none. Without objection, we do stand adjourned. We're adjourned.